over to Rochelle, and she can distribute it out. Does that work for you, Rochelle?
Yeah, that's great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay,
Perfect.
perfect.
Okay, well, so I'll just briefly introduce myself and our team, and then we'll get started because I know you guys just have a lot to do. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Macadin. I'm the executive director at the SPCSA. We are, as you know, distributing these funds for all charter schools, not just the charter schools in our portfolio. And as you also know, we've never done this before. So fully acknowledge that we have maybe had some, not maybe, we've had some hiccups in communication. We apologize for that as we've kind of tried to figure this out ourselves. We're not used to doing this either with another LEA. So know that you have my word. It will go smoother next time because we've learned a lot through this process. And this process will happen honestly this spring for next year. So it'll be well in advance of the school year. And those things that have been like really annoying to you, you have my word. We are working on them to clean it up and make it a smoother process for everyone. So with that, we also have Jen Villanueva. She's our director of finance and operations, and she, is a critical part of this work. And then we also have Dusty Casey. He's actually going to be the one who does the training today. Dusty's, I'll let him introduce himself and his background, and why he is the person on our team who has the expertise to help school leaders do this work and answer their questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dusty.
Okay, sounds good. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for taking the time, and I will make sure to make this as concise as possible and leave some room at the end for questions. But anyways, yeah, my name is Dusty Casey, former CFO of Oasis Academy Charter School in Fallon. I was a co-founder of that school, so been in the charter world now for, I don't know, 15 years or so. Mostly on the finance and operations side. And now I'm consulting with the SPCSA to aid the SPCSA portfolio schools with budgets and financial reporting and really everything to do with their finances. And so that's essentially the role I'm playing now. I did help the SPCSA kind of, I worked with Jennifer and the team to put together the application for the AB398. And so I'm familiar definitely with those funds. I also sit on the Commission on School Funding. I sit alongside the Mark Mathers, who's the CFO for Washington County School District, and other district CFOs and stuff. Been working with them for quite a few years now. So I'm definitely familiar with kind of both sides of it, the district side and the charter school side. And so I kind of know what they had to go through last biennium with dealing with these teacher raise funds. So I'm a little bit familiar with that as well. And so I kind of know what hoops we need to really jump through and make sure that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's. So I do have a template here. I received Encompass Academy's template. I hope that's okay if I share that. Obviously, it's going to be public knowledge at some point. If we walk through that, I don't have a blank template. The template we used for the SPCSA charter schools was a little different. We customized it a little bit different. But obviously, I don't want to touch your guys' templates. You do it how you want to do it. And I see there's been some customization already. But in order to comply, we do need to add in a few things. And so, Rochelle, do you think it's okay? I'm actually not sure who on here might be from Encompass. Do you think it's okay that I share that budget?
I'm sure. I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Okay.
I don't see Adam or Cheryl on here. So I'm just going to take it for the team.
Okay, sounds good. Can you guys see my screen okay? Okay, perfect. So this is the original Department of Taxation form. For those of you who've been in charter finance for a while, this is really new. The last couple of years, we used to have that charter school and university school template form. So this one is a little bit different, more in line with what the districts use. And I know that varies by district. They each kind of customize these forms to suit their needs. So I'm going to come back to this Schedule 1 in a minute. This is the summary. But the biggest thing with this legislation, there's a few things. Number one is NDE and the legislation established a new fiscal fund. It's Fund 220. And so part of this, in order to apply, receive, and utilize these funds, school boards and districts had to do the same thing, but charter school boards must approve opening fiscal fund 220. So that's important. So when you guys have your board meetings, either as part of the agenda item to approve your amended budget, or as a separate agenda item, which really I would recommend, is your board approves opening fiscal fund 220 in order to track the revenue and expenditures associated with AB 398. So it will become another fund. So if we're looking at this Schedule 1, Encompass says this budget contains 2 state education funds and then 2 governmental funds with estimated expenditures of almost 1.8 million. It will become one of those funds. Okay. So the first thing I noticed on their budget was they only have 2 funds. And if we go to schedule, I'm going to skip to schedule BB5 real quick, which is the first revenue tab. I noticed that Encompass has, obviously they have adjusted base funding, but I believe they also have ELL at risk. And then you'll see a line item here for AB 390, or excuse me, it should say AB 398 salary increases, not SB. So this one does, let me blow this up a little bit. I apologize if it's small. So this is where this line looks like it was inserted. This should really say AB 398. And probably a note here that says Fund 220. But this is good that there's a line item and here's their estimated funds. But what I noticed with their budget is they also have ELL and at risk. Well, those are 2 other separate funds. And I believe they also have state special education, state sped right here above. So right there, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 funds. So if I look at Schedule 1, I should see 5 funds in here because Fund 100 General Fund, Special Education's 250, AB 398's 220, and then you have the weighted funds, ELL at risk 206, 207, I believe Gates 208, whatever. So all of those funds should be listed here. If your school also has a federal fiscal funds, Fund 280, and your board approved opening up a separate fund to track federal funds, that should be one of your governmental fund types. So all of your board approved governmental fund types should be reflected there on Schedule 1.
Dusty,
Yes.
can we, I know this meeting isn't about that, but I do think, can we pause and just say because this is relatively new to charter schools, and we had a lot of our schools who weren't in compliance with this too. So can you just say on the record, so everybody is playing with the level playing field, what are the funds that now you are required to have because of weighted funding?
So under appropriations that come out of the legislative session, Fund 100 General Fund, obviously for your PCFP base, adjusted base dollars, and any other local revenues you have. But you are also required to have those weighted funds. So receiving state special education dollars, you have to separate those out in the fiscal fund 250. ELL at risk gate, those are those 206, 207, 208 funds. So if you are running those programs and have expenditures associated with them and are receiving revenue, you have to open those, and that's spelled out in the education bills that are related to the PCFP, specifically when the PCFP was created. And so you have to have those funds. It's really at the board's discretion to have other funds. For example, federal funds 280. If you're not a school that receives significant federal funds, a lot of times your auditor might comment on this, like, your federal funds are becoming significant enough. They should be set aside as a separate major budget fund. But honestly, I know at Oasis Academy, we did not open a separate fiscal fund just for federal funds. It's probably good practice. And again, most schools, especially if you're a Title I school or something, or if you are receiving a lot of Part B dollars, a lot of Title II dollars, then a lot of schools do. They operate Fund 280. If you also receive a lot of state grants, other than, of course, what we're talking about here, other state grants, maybe pre-K or something like that, that are significant, there is a state fund, and I don't have that number in front of me. I feel like it's like maybe 240 or something. Don't quote me on that one. I have seen that fund opened up as well. But remember, the fiscal funds are used to track all the programs, functions, et cetera, within there, and they have to be board approved. And one thing we are seeing on, at least on our side, is a little bit of a misunderstanding about how fiscal funds work and the authority, the budget authority that lies with school leaders, directors, principals, whatever, versus the board. And so those fiscal funds and complying with NRS and NAC and making sure that boards have to approve it, and only boards can approve transferring money between funds and approve the spending limits in funds. School leaders cannot spend outside of what the board approves in a budget for each fiscal fund. And so it's very important that to comply with NRS, that school leaders understand that that authority rests with the board. There is some ability for school leaders to move money around within functions and to some extent programs that are inside fiscal funds, but they cannot spend outside of the board approved appropriation in each fiscal fund. So Melissa, does that cover what you wanted me to cover? Okay. Okay. And I know a lot of you already know that. So but we definitely, we have a lot of new schools and a lot of new people coming through the charter school world, especially in the world of finance. And so I just wanted to cover that real quick. Okay. I'm going to skip to the BB tabs and then we'll come back to the AA and AA modified, which are the summary tabs. So I notice in your guys' workbook, that again on BB5, there's a separate line item for the AB398 funds. Again, make sure that says AB, not SB. So that's good. That revenue's in there. That's perfect. From an expenditure standpoint, it looks like there's a new tab created. And Rochelle, I apologize. I don't know if the school created this or if you guys created that for all the Washoe County School District schools. Okay. It looks like somebody created a separate BB7A tab. I don't know, do any of the other schools, do you guys have this same other tab to track the AB398 funds?
We do
in this
not.
workbook? Okay. I think it's probably a good idea. And Rochelle, obviously I'll defer to you on this, but if you want all the schools to look the same, we didn't do it this way, but I think this way is perfectly fine and it looks good to me. This school created a BB7A tab, and you'll notice up here they did program 220. So the expenditure code for these funds, and I got to switch my screen real quick, but it is, so your revenue code should be, so if we're looking at a revenue code, it's broken out fund, project grant, and revenue. It's going to be fund 220, your project grant code's 220, and your revenue code is 3280. So if I look at this BB8 tab, there's your revenue code 3280. That's perfect. But the full revenue code is 220-220-3280. And that encompasses the fund, the project grant code, and the revenue. On the expenditure side, it's fund 220, it's project grant 220, and
It's on the same thing. Yeah.
And then from a program standpoint, this is where it differs a little bit. And so this actually, I'm going to back up a little bit. These budget workbooks from Department of Taxation, and again, I didn't create these are Department of Taxation. They are designed, and they aren't on a fund basis. They're on a program basis when it comes to expenditures. Your first code up here is program. Okay, so Rochelle, I'm actually going to take back what I said, and I don't think you should do it this way, and I'll explain why. But that, and I'm going to drop this full expenditure code in the chat real quick. Sorry, I got a few different screens here. Okay, so what I just dropped in the chat would be a full account code for a regular teacher salary. 220-220-100, it would be a regular program. Function 1000 is instruction, and 111 would be a licensed teacher salary, right? Now, if you use benefits, and of course it would be 211 instead of 111 at the end for your PERS portion of the AB 398. So this is kind of why that this, in my opinion, this budget workbook doesn't really work, because AB 398 funds do not have their own program. They have their own fund, and they have their own project grant code. They do not have their own program code. So really, a licensed teacher salary would stay embedded in your instruction and benefits. It would stay on tab BB7. If I go to special education, let me see, that's BB, get there. It's on BB7 also. That would be program 200 for special education. So your special education teachers who might be getting AB 398 funds, salary and benefits, they would stay. So basically all your salary and benefits stay coded to their original location on these BB tabs, because again, they're not broken up by project grant and they're not broken out by fund. They are by program. So you will leave those expenses where they go. If they're a teacher salary, they go in program 100, special program, special ed 200, ELL at risk is program 400, which is BB9, right? So those are 400 level programs for at risk and ELL. Those salaries and stuff would stay there. If you have front office staff, maintenance, etc., those would be back in your 000 program codes, whether if they're counselors, nurses, I know school administrators aren't part of this, but if you have front office staff or whatever, I'm on tab BB12, for example, under school administration. If you have front office staff, that's still program 000. So the program code does not change. So for all those expenses, they should fall where they fall. They would have in this budget workbook specifically. So Rochelle, I would advise Encompass to get rid of this, because that's actually, there is no program 220 associated with AB 398, the raises. So
to get rid of that tab?
Yeah, and these salaries and all the, these should just go back to where they have them. So like they have 1,000 salaries and benefits, those should go back to tab BB, BB7, and then 2110 student support services, whatever program those fit into. Same with the instruction support staff and central service. My guess that one would go to schedule BB12. Here's 2,500, and those dollars should flow back to there.
Okay.
And we did confirm this account code that I dropped in the chat with NDE. So that is the correct account code. We discussed that with them. Now, so you're probably asking, well, then where do we show the AB 398 expenditures if they're not broken out? This is where they should be shown, is on the summary tab. So these AA or AA modified, and you have the choice to use whichever one you want to use. We didn't give our schools a choice. We customized one. So it looks like Encompass chose for their expenditures to use AA1. There's also a AA1 modified that looks a little different. Rochelle, I think that's totally up to you if you have a preference of which one you want schools to use. I don't really know. AA modified is the more updated one that the Department of Taxation came. These AA sheets are really old, actually kind of going back to the Nevada plan, funding plan. But I just want to look right here on either of these tabs. Okay. I'm going to start with AA1. This whole top portion is just general fund. So these tabs are by fund, these summary tabs, these AA ones. So if you look, this top is general fund. Okay. The bottom are your other funds, and you should list the numbers here. So, you know, special education, this should say 250. This is where you should also break out AB 398 down here. We really should insert a line, and you guys should put 220 in here, AB 398, with your total salaries and total benefits should go on this line down here on your expenditure summary tab. Again, whether you're using AA or AA modified, same thing. Make sure you list those funds down here with your total expenditures. And these expenditures are broken out by salaries and wages, benefits, and then all the other purchase services, supplies, etc. It's 3 columns on these summary tabs. But if I'm looking at Encompass, they did break out federal projects. So it looks like they're using a federal revenue, which I believe is 280. And then ELL at risk. I always get these a little confused. I know one's 206, I think this one's 208. Please double check. I get the ELL at risk and gate a little bit mixed up. And then of course you would have gate down here if you had gate, but this is where you would break out your AB 398 total expenditures. And then what you will have to do, of course, to make this balance, your totals, is you will have to back them out of wherever they go, right? So X amount of teacher salaries and benefits that are in regular programs, you would have to take that total and back out because you're now breaking out AB 398 down here. So you would just have to go through, you know, ELL at risk, wherever they fall, and make sure you back those salaries back out. So your totals down here match Schedule BB 14A, which is your total expenditures, right? The AA tabs are just a summary of your BB tabs. Your BB tabs are all the details. The AA and the AA-1 tabs are a summary of those BB tabs, and they should balance. But again, because on your BB tabs, you're not segregating those AB 398 expenses, they're embedded. When you go to your summary tab and you pull all these totals from those other tabs, and then you break out AB 398, you need to back those costs out from wherever they fall in here. And I know that's probably a little tedious, but you guys have your AB 398 worksheets, and I'm sure since you had to build your budget, you probably have those numbers somewhat handy. So I do want to stop there real quick. I see a question in the chat, Christina. I'm going to defer to Rochelle on that one.
So what I will just say about that is we didn't just create a special budget for AB 398. We have a different budget we don't like this budget template for our schools. It's cumbersome. We don't like it. So we have a different budget template that our schools use for their budgeting process. And so it's very different. And so I'm very hesitant to just willy-nilly give it to you guys if somebody in Washoe County's budget office hasn't signed off that they're okay with you all using it.
Right.
It's not that I'm like trying to gatekeep it. It's more just we totally did something different, and I don't want to presume that it is okay for you all to use it. And they need to be, somebody at Washoe County needs to understand it enough to look at it and go, oh yeah, they did this right, or they did it wrong. And, that can be kind of a time consuming process for someone to take someone else's spreadsheet and look at all the cells and really understand how it all works and ties together. So this isn't something we created just for, AB 398. It's sort of what we do with our schools in general. And so my fear, Christina, is one, I wouldn't do that without someone in fiscal at Washoe giving it a thumbs up, but also it would be a lot of work for you to like when our schools had to switch to it, they were like, because it was a lot of work that initial first time using it because it was different. So that's the thing.
And Christina, I see your hand up, but also we changed the template quite a bit from the final to the amended. So it changed even further because of the AB398, and we had to add another column for amended finals and stuff. So we actually changed it even more. But go ahead, Christina. I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, understandable. We used the SPCSA template because we service multiple schools in Nevada. So we didn't use this particular format. We used what the SPCSA format. And so that actually for us will be easier to complete than
that's
attempting to figure
100%
this
up
one
to
out.
that's 100% up to Rochelle and Washoe. Like they're your LEA. Like if they are fine with every single one of you making your own templates and going that route, we do not care at all. That's why Rochelle's going to send these all over in one lump sum and be like, yep, we signed off on these. They are right. They look good, because we don't have the bandwidth for our schools to all be creating their own. We need all of our schools to be the same. So as we're looking at them, we know exactly what we're looking for and what we're checking for. But I'm not going to like speak for your LEA. Like Rochelle's going to have to figure that out and probably circle back with you guys with an answer, I would assume. But
I will.
if you have ours, Christina, because you service other schools and they're fine with you using it, I think they just have to understand it enough to go, oh yeah, they did this right, looks good. Because here's the thing. There are reports that are going to, like all of this is going to transfer to the 387 report next year. And there are going to be other reports that we have to do that track this money through this fund code or through this accounting code that Dusty put in there. And we have to make sure your budgets were created correctly so that then you can do the reports correctly. And that's like my number one fear in this whole process, is that we have a charter school or charter schools that can't report out properly on how they spent this money with the correct coding. And basically, I'm just going to be blunt, it screws everyone, right? Like all it's going to take is one or two charter schools to not be able to account for this funding. And they're not going to want to give it to us again. They're not going to want to include us in future funding. Like they're going to, you know, the narrative, the haters are going to hate and they're going to be like, they can't even administer this money correctly. Like, I don't have to tell you how bad it would be. So that's why it's just really, really important that we get these budgets right. So whatever Washoe wants to do to sign off on, we don't care.
So, and Rochelle, looking at this template, and I see Bob has a question, and I think I know what it is. So Bob, if I'm not answering it, please jump in. But I also noticed this budget template, and again, this is the Department of Taxation form. It's not like the old charter budget form where there was a third column for a amended final. It has the tentative, the final, and there should be another column for an amended final budget, and there isn't. And so, Bob, if that's your question of how are they going to know if the budget changed from the final to the amended final, they should be side by side in this template, and there isn't a column. Like it looks to me like Encompass just typed over this and said revised final. First of all, it should say amended final, but it really should be the final budget alongside the amended. Now, if you guys just want to move it over and make this column the final and this one the amended, that's totally up to you, but they should be side by side. So Bob, is that what you were asking?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah. So we had to customize our template to make sure that we actually added two more columns because we know there's going to be amendment with this required amendment. And then some schools can amend their budget again. They might amend it in the spring later, depending on how their school year goes and if they get in some other funds or whatever the circumstances could be. So that really should be side by side. And then you would see in those columns where the raises are, like in BB7, for example, this would be the final budget. And then you would see the revised, and you would see the difference. Now, something could have changed since the final budget's June 8th, and it doesn't mean it's always going to go up if circumstances where you move some people around and maybe the wages in a certain category still went down because you moved personnel or something, whatever. Long story short, they should be side by side. But what I will kind of want to finish with is where you are really going to break out the AB398s are on these AA schedules. So again, AA1 or AA1 modified, you need to have it broken out as a separate fund with the fund numbers. And then same on the revenue. I'm going to blow this one up a little bit. And this one, Encompass did break it out right here. However, they did it under the general fund section at the top. It should move down here to the bottom and list fund 220 with, again, just like they did on the expenditures, AB 398, and break out those dollars on this tab here and move that down to the bottom. And we do see it's a common mistake that we are seeing with our charter schools as well. You can see here, Encompass also put their special education dollars or expenditures up here under this general fund section. This whole top section is general fund. Well, special education isn't general fund. It's its own fund, right? Fund 250. That should be down here, those expenses. Same with ELL, at risk. They have a federal projects, that's fine. Really, the only programs that should be up here are 100, 000, and 900 should be about the only thing that charters are going to have up here. Almost, yeah, that's really about it. Contingency, of course, is a general fund thing. Fund transfers would go in here. And then your ending fund balance. But that's where, and I think these might have been edited as well, these function codes, because really these function codes are embedded in 000 undistributed. So that should capture all of your general overhead stuff, your facilities and your school administration and everything. Because all these back BB tabs, starting with BB 12, are all 000 program. So that's 000. BB 13 is still 000. 2600, 2700, 2900 function codes. Those are all 000. So again, you should have a fairly big number in there. And then all said and done, it should all balance here. And on schedule 1, again, you need to make sure you list your total funds, including that. Now on our tab, Rochelle, we designed, and if you don't, Rochelle, are you okay if I just pull up ours real quick to show one more difference that you might want to consider?
Sure.
I'm going to stop sharing and pull it up because I think this is important. And this is where we made sure that budgets were, boards were seeing hang on one sec. Okay. I'm going to pull this one up and share again. We changed this front schedule to where we spell out all the funds with expenditures and list them, because this is the board signature page. And we made sure right there that we pulled them out. Now, as long as your board sees these Schedule AA modifieds alongside and they take action on it in the minutes and stuff, fiscal fund, I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't want to go to this length. But we did edit this front page to make sure that all the funds that a board has approved are in front of the board that they can see. So for this school, for example, they're operating 5 fiscal funds: general fund, special education, ELL, at risk, ELL, GATE, and there's your AB 398 for a total, of 2.4 million of their expenditures. So right there, the board sees the funds, they sign off on them, and they know it's there. But in my opinion, it's not required that you go to this detail if the board's taking action, that in their motion that they acknowledge Fund 220 and those, and that those funds are spelled out, because the only other place they would be spelled out in the budget are on your AA modified for revenue and your AA1 for, excuse me, I'm on our tabs, but we deleted the two of the options. But again, I'll show you our revenue tab, AA modified. You can see that all the funds, so all the general fund stuff is up on the top half. On the bottom are all the other funds, ELL, at-risk, gate, and then there's AB 398. List any other funds. So that's the revenue side. And on the expenditure side, same exact thing. So top half is all general fund, regular programs. There's the 000, any fund transfers, contingency. And then down below are all the other funds including AB 398, Fund 220. They're all listed down here with their expenditures coming to a total, including an ending fund balance and a total of expenditures. So if you guys don't change the front schedule, you need to make sure that these fund numbers are listed in here. Yes, go ahead.
Dusty, where do you put program 300? Because I'm looking at what you're showing us. So 300 is vocation. Where does that fit?
Mhm.
Let me go back to
if you look on ours, the one that we are using, we have it in under 100.
So you're running a vocational.
It's under the general fund.
Yeah, it's under the general fund and program 300. So if you're running a separate vocational and technical program that you're keeping track of, more than likely it's part of your general fund. So,
right.
But it's a program. It's not separated out really any other way. And so on your AA modified tabs, it would be.
So on AA1, where would it be?
AA1, it would be up here.
Okay,
so
that's where I have it. All right.
It looks like you have a program 300 there. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So like for special, that 200 needs to go down below where under Fund 250 for special ed.
Yeah, because your special ed is required to be segregated into Fund 250. The program number's right up here, but unless there's and really nobody does this to my knowledge, but there are some other programs that are lumped into that 200, but it's generally reserved for special education, which is associated with Fund 250. So your expenditures are obviously, program or Fund 250, project grant code 200 and something is special education, and then program 200. That would all be under Fund 250 though, for special education.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, please, any other questions? I know we kind of moved around a lot and went through here fast. Or Melissa, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think the main thing is like just circling back, remember that you can do it as two separate agenda items or combine it into one, but your board does need to officially create Fund 220. And I would just say, if you aren't using these other funds and we had schools that weren't too, so I know it happens. If you aren't using those other funds like special ed, ELL, at risk, not everyone has gifted and talented, and you haven't officially created those, maybe take this opportunity to do that and get it in line with what's now required under the PCFP. And again, I think Rochelle will circle back and tell you if you can use our form or not, if they care. She'll tell you if they want you to use whichever AA1 or AA1 modified, if they want everyone to be consistent, if they want everything to be different. And I think the other maybe outstanding question from the schools that Rochelle might circle back on is the district gonna send out, I forget which tab it was, Dusty, where you were showing, where it should say like amended final?
Well, it's all these BB schedules
Yeah,
where
so
there
I
should
don't
really
know
probably
if,
be another column.
like, I think that she'll give you guidance on whether they're gonna send it out or whether they just want you to add an extra column that says amended final approved. So however they want you to handle that. And then someone asked a question, Rochelle, that also you'll have to answer. Is it okay if they put formulas in? I mean, I personally wouldn't see why that would matter. It just makes life easier, but I'll let her circle back on those things and tell you like what the guidance is that they want you to use.
Yeah,
Okay.
because these Department of Taxation forms have no formulas. So I know the districts come in here and they put formulas in all these summary cells and stuff like that.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's you kind of have to. I mean, you know, so.
Okay. And all of this is due to you, Melissa, when?
Technically, the 45 days is
Uh-huh.
December 15th, but look, if you guys don't, if you're like, we can't do it by then, we don't care. Honestly, we'll do it anytime. Like if some of our schools are turning them in now, and so we'll refund them now. The 45 days was December 15th, but if you're like, give us until January 1st, we don't care. We're totally flexible on when you all want to send them in. We don't care. We did get the money funded into our account. So as soon as we get them,
Okay.
we'll push the money out. Like it will be a very quick turnaround once we get them.
Okay. Can you give me a little history on the 45 days? I couldn't find that reflected anywhere. I was like, where are the 45 days starting and ending
Oh
from?
God, I don't know. It might have just been an arbitrary date that we were like, okay, what would be a reasonable amount of time
Okay.
for these schools to get this done in and like do an amended budget? So we probably just frankly made that up.
Okay.
We don't care. Like whatever, it's not like a statute or
Okay.
anything like that. So if you
Okay.
guys are like, no, we want till whenever, we don't care. It's no skin off our back.
Okay. So from us, you want a zip folder with all of our charters approved, their board to approve, right? Their budgets. That zip. Did you also want me to include meeting minutes or anything like that?
No, I think we're really relying on you as the LEA to say like, we've checked this, like that.
Okay.
Like, I'm just looking for, it doesn't even have to be like an official memo, just something in the email that says, you know, as the LEA, our schools have correctly created Fund 220 and budgeted AB 398 appropriately.
Okay.
Something like
Okay.
that just acknowledges like someone signed off on these.
Okay.
And then we'll be
Melissa,
good.
do we
Yeah.
want to have, so are you saying we don't need the budget workbooks?
I think we should have them just in case, because if LCB has any questions, they're going to come to us. And I just think it would be easier if we had them.
Okay, so then, Rochelle, I would, as part of the normal budget process, you know, the schools have to print this out to PDF and have their board sign it. And so, if you could send us the workbook along with that signed signature page,
Okay.
from the board, then that would be just like the normal budget submission.
Okay.
Then our file for each school would be complete.
Okay.
And then I guess, Melissa, we'll just have to take a double check on that and just make sure that fund is spelled out
Okay.
in here, only because it won't be on the signature page unless, Rochelle, you guys decide that you want to use our Schedule 1 maybe, or something like that, where it is spelled out on here. That's the
Mhm.
only thing, is we would have to look at each school's budget and just make sure that they had that 220 fund spelled out in their budget that was presented to their board and approved. So,
Okay.
so again, that's totally up to you, but
Versus it looked like, from my view, it looked like a cover page on my, almost, right, Dusty? Like when
yeah.
I looked at your 3 little boxes, yeah.
Yep. And so we just took that middle section, and where it was kind of in paragraph form where you just listed the number of funds, we wanted to make sure that we could see where the board signs and on one page that they're acknowledging all their funds. And so that's why we did this the way we did it, so we could see all the funds
Okay.
broken out, including, of course, 220, which is AB 398 right there.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
It just took what that other sheet had in paragraph form and put it in spreadsheet, table form. That's really all
Okay.
it did.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then
I
I
see-
see Rob has his hand up. Did you have a question, Rob?
Yes, hi Dusty. Bailey had its board meeting yesterday, and their next one is not scheduled until January 20th. How critical is the correct number of funds on the signature page? Ours looks the same as Encompass's, where we list 2 funds. We don't list, and we do have special ed, at-risk, EL, etc. So we did a signature page last night, but it says 2 funds.
Does your AA sheets spell out the funds that you have, including AB 220?
Yes.
Or excuse me, Fund 220 with AB 398?
Yes, the sheets broken out are where you have the ability to, we did itemize there, kind of similar to what you were talking about in your presentation. But it's just that cover sheet that I'm concerned about.
Would you mind shooting it over to me and Rochelle so we could take a look? Rochelle, is that okay with you if we could look at
Sure.
that budget?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Again, only reason I want to see is just because I notice, again, like some schools aren't putting their fund numbers in over here. Like this school didn't have it. I typed those in. It wasn't listed out as the fund numbers and stuff. So I just want to look for that level of detail and see. Melissa, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. What action did your board take, Rob, specific to AB 398? Did they open up Fund 220 and?
Yes, the 2 steps: open Fund 220 and approve the revised final budget. We didn't refer to it as amended. But
Sure.
yes, they did do the 2 steps, 2-step
Okay.
process.
I think if you have it spelled out in the details with the fund numbers, I think it's, to me, it's fine. The board action is what's important, right, Melissa? That the board
Yeah, and
minutes
just
would
make
back that
sure,
up.
yeah, maybe beef up your minutes more than what you normally would to really,
Okay.
spell out what happened there so that there's like a clear through line, especially if you are like Encompass and you didn't put those fund numbers over here on the AA1 or AA1 modified tab. Like if yours are blank too, really maybe beef up your minutes a little bit and like verbalize, what's going on might be
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna-
like cleanest way.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and on the AA tabs, I'm going to go ahead and put the fund numbers in there. They're not keyed in yet, but I'll key them in before I send this over to you.
Okay,
Dusty and
perfect.
Rob.
I think that's good because your board took action on it anyways. But Rob, I would recommend that at some point your board make sure that with the budget you put in front of them, that they see all those fiscal funds and that they're spelled out as required by the PCFP, and they understand what they're authorizing. And again, it can be so confusing, and I know explaining that stuff to boards can be difficult, but it really should reflect what the school is actually running. But in this instance, I don't think it's going to hold anything up.
Okay, I'll make sure we take that action at the next board meeting.
Stephanie? Stephanie, do you have a question? I see your hand is up. We can't hear you.
I
if
see you're unmuted, Stephanie, but we're not hearing anything. So maybe try typing your question. It might be in your settings somewhere if you don't use Teams all the time. I know it's a nightmare. So maybe put your question in the chat because we're not hearing you even when you're unmuted.
Fezzi, are you talking about, you said does the fund come to individual charter schools or to what? Are you talking about the AB 398 funds? Are they going to come directly to you or
Yes.
through the district? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking?
Yes, I'm asking this, yes. Through district, then us,
No.
or just directly Carl
Directly to you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Easier then.
Yeah.
Okay.
No sense creating an added step in there where we don't need to.
Yes.
That's why, you know, they're going to send them over to us. And Rochelle, if you get into a situation where these school, like some of them are ready to go, and if
Mhm.
there are going to be some that are like not ready to go by the 15th, and you want to send them in two groups because you want to get the money in the hands of these schools, just
Okay.
communicate that to me. If you want to,
Okay. Thank
you know, because I don't want to, I know like a lot of, as you know, you can expend these funds however you want. Some of our schools are going to add a little bit to each paycheck. Now, personally, wearing my school leader hat, Dusty and I, we probably would have just done it in two big paychecks because the reporting, or two times, like once at the semester break and once at the end of the year, because it's going to be way less paperwork and reporting on the back end to show all the different things. But you can do it however you want. And I know
Okay.
a lot of schools are trying to, a lot of our schools are trying to get this payment going ASAP for their teachers. And so if you find yourself in that situation where you have a handful of schools ready and a handful that aren't, please just, we can do it
Okay.
in shifts. We can do it in
Okay.
groups. I don't want
I
to hold
appreciate that.
up anyone getting this money and getting it in the hands of their teachers. So, and
Thank you.
education support staff. Yeah.
Thanks,
And
Melissa.
I would also like to add in, so we've talked about the budget piece, but the recording, the accounting piece is going to be critical because at the end of the year, there is going to be a detailed report where you have to show where you actually spent the money compared to your budget. And so in your accounting systems, this is something we're seeing with our SPCSA schools, is making sure that you have that fund set up, all of these funds really set up in your accounting system. And by the end of the year, before the audit, that you've made all the necessary journal entries or cost coded along the way to where once your books are closed out for the school year and your auditor pulls a trial balance, they're going to see these funds and they're going to see Fund 220. They're going to see, you know, your ELL at-risk special education. And that should be able to be traced to your audit. Now, they may not be considered a major fund, and he may roll them into like some auditors do, like here's your general fund, and then here's all your other funds combined, but they will usually note those other funds. And if you don't have those broken out in your accounting system, and it's not reflected in your audit, that's going to be a reporting problem for any school that's not showing that they were accounting for those separately, just like all the other fiscal funds. So please make sure that as you start paying these dollars out, how you do it on your end is up to you, whether you want to leave everything intact now, adjust salaries, and do a journal entry at the end of the year. That's fine. Like how you guys do your accounting is up to you, just as long as at the end, when you're doing your year-end stuff, that these fiscal funds have the proper expenses coded to them, including Fund 220 for these AB 398, because there will be a detailed report that will be coming out. And Melissa, we'll probably release that towards the end of the school year, whatever that report's going to look like. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see if LCB is gonna, like, can we do whatever we want for this, or are they gonna dictate, like, this is the information we want? And that is what I don't know yet.
Yeah. Rob.
Just a couple other questions on the flow of funds. So if I understood, is the money going from NDE to the SPCSA?
It's
to
not,
to,
we already know, we have the money. The money
Okay.
came from, I don't know, Jennifer, where did it come from? LCB? God, I don't know. We have the money in our account. That's all I know.
It's in there. It's in there.
Okay.
And then NDE is no part of this equation. So it'll come directly from the SPCSA to you. And so, yeah.
Is it cash advance or a reimbursement basis?
No, it's not reimbursement basis. So
It's just a payment,
Yep. So
a straight payment.
once
One
your
payment.
LEA signs off and says, I can't remember what school you said you were from.
Bailey.
Once they say Bailey did this right and they send it over to us,
Mhm.
and like Dusty said, we'll just look for 220 in the budget. We see it, then we'll initiate, transferring the funds. So it's great. It's not reimbursement based.
Okay, so there's really no award letter or anything. It's just here's the money. All right. And then just one last question, kind of shifting gears a little bit. Is there any like cutoff for new hires to be eligible? Or is it just a
No.
matter of each school
Yeah.
have this set amount of money?
Yeah, exactly. And yes, please, if you had someone on your original worksheet that has since resigned and you've replaced them, by all means, that's not like written in stone. The only thing written in stone is the amount. So if people have come and gone and you need to make adjustments, that is 100% fine as long as you stay within, the amount.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think what I would add to that though, and Melissa, you please correct me if I'm wrong. While people might change and dollar amount per position might change, I would not recommend changing the structure of how you applied. So if you said you were going to pay salaries and benefits, meaning PERS, and I don't think you can change now and say, nah, we're just gonna do salaries and not do benefits or something. So Melissa, please correct me
Yeah,
if
that's
I'm wrong.
100% right. Let me give a
Okay.
very specific example. So let's say Melissa McAdin was on there as your sped teacher and she, been there forever and she was making $75,000. And so and her raise was originally going to be, you didn't do it the same for every person, and her raise was going to be $7,000. And she has since quit, and now Dusty Casey came on board. He's a first-year teacher. He's only making $50,000, and his raise is now going to be $5,000. Great. We're still doing it according to, we said everyone was getting a 10% raise. All of our teachers were. So the methodology can't change. The name and the amount can, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else we can help with?
Dusty, I have a question, or maybe I can summarize it and then my question. So essentially, we created this AB398. The new revenue is 220, 3280. So that's a fund source. And then we're going to identify, because ACE, like I think probably most of the Washoe charters, we never had to identify all the different fund sources of 206, 208, and so on. So we're going to start doing that. And those are going to be our new funds that are going to be board approved. We're going to specify what they're for, how we're spending those. Those are going to be acted in a board meeting specifically for those. And then we will approve the Fund 220 to fund AB 398 for the teacher raises that they've already been approved, and so on. Have I hit the marks pretty much so far?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
good. And really, and this is something we're seeing, and we're actually talking at the commission level about uniformity of accounting and stuff with expenditures amongst districts as well, because it varies widely amongst districts, is really trying to make this more consistent. But it's imperative that you are matching the sources, so your revenue with the uses. So if you get ELL dollars, you need to be matching up ELL expenditures and matching those account codes up, right? It comes to you in the form of 206 or 207 or 208. It's usually spelled out on your payments, and it's spelled out in those payment workbooks, those monthly workbooks. You need to be accounting for those to match those funds. Now you can spend more, and I want to make sure you guys understand, and I know a lot of you do, but if generally your special education costs, ELL costs are going to be way more than the money you're getting, because you have to service your ELL kids, you have to service your IEPs. So just make sure those costs are going to those funds. Fund 250 for special education, ELL. And then at the end of the year, if you're upside down, meaning you've spent way more than you got in state special education, that's where the fund transfer comes in, and your board approves a transfer of, once your audit's done, of X amount of dollars from your general fund over to balance out your special education fund or to balance out your ELL. Now, AB 398 is not like that. It's like a appropriation where you match up exactly, similar to a grant, right? But some people mistake ELL, gay, at-risk, and special education as grants, and they're not. They're appropriations. And so you got to spend what you got to spend to service those, and then you make up the difference with general fund dollars, because they're expenses you already have. It's just what we're seeing is a lot of charter schools are leaving those expenses coded in their general fund. And honestly, it skews the statewide, it skews what we see at the state level of how much our schools are spending on ELL, spending on special education. So please make sure that you're getting those coded correctly by the end of the year. So when the audit comes and then the 387 report comes, that we're accurately showing those costs to those other areas, especially those weighted areas. So,
and I'll just kind of add to that, because, I think all of you know that Dusty and I were co-founders of Oasis, and we were like in your seats like 2 years ago doing exactly what you're doing. And in those seats, we were always like, God, why are the charter schools getting so screwed on state sped dollars? Like, what? I mean, we would just wring our hair out, And then now that we got in this role, now we know it's because they're not budgeting correctly, and therefore they're not doing their 387 report correctly. So as far as the state is concerned, they are getting their fair share, because they're not spending nearly, they're not, and I'm going to say you, because it's widespread in the charter community. You're not documenting correctly how much money you're actually spending on SPED and ELL. And so in the long run, it's hurting all charter schools with the state SPED funding. It's very complicated, but I'm not going to try to explain the formula and all of that, because I can't. But I do, now that we've been on this side of it, we're like, oh, this is why. So it is really super important, and we're making a massive concerted effort with the 387 report to ensure that our schools are doing it right, which we think is going to help the funding that all charters get in the state. So if you guys do it right too, it'll only further help everybody. So just really be aware that it might seem like it's just some weird bureaucracy that doesn't matter, but 4 steps down the road, it actually does. And, so that's my plug for doing it right, because that's part of why we're all getting so screwed over on state sped funding.
So the last 2 questions, that just a final. So Washoe, Rochelle, we'll have to work with Rochelle to come up with some type of template to put in an amended budget column would be the recommendation, correct? Something.
Yes.
And then if we just do this, I know Melissa said, she could do it in 2 different, she'll take it in 2 different kind of submissions from Rochelle, but I know people want to get it done. If we just get this done by that December 4th date, get it to Rochelle, should we do an amended budget that we normally do we usually do it in our springtime, early spring?
Oh, for sure. This is not going to change that. Like, we used to do, I think, 2 or 3 amended budgets, Dusty and I did. So yeah, you can, I mean, honestly, if circumstances change, you could do 6 amended final budgets at your school. There's no limit on that.
But I wasn't for sure, so I just wanted to ask that. So,
Well,
Yeah.
Bob, it's a great question, and I think it goes to what I was talking about earlier with approval levels of expenditures. There's a lot of schools who don't know that they can do that. And honestly, it's good practice because let's just say you're a small school, and this happened to us at Oasis where we had a special education budget. Let's say the board approves $1 million to spend in the special education. And then throughout the year, we enroll 2 more critical needs kids that require one-on-one aids with their IEPs. Well, that wasn't in our budget. Well, technically, Melissa, as the school leader, she can't spend above that $1 million. And so we would have to do an amended budget periodically throughout the year in order to rectify that to where the board approves it. And then she can, spend the dollars necessary to service those IEPs. That's just one example. So yeah, there were years where, grants came in late, there were true ups from ND, all kinds of things, and kids
Right.
enrolled with one-on-ones. We would do an amended, sometimes 3 amended budgets throughout the year as needed to make sure that we weren't spending outside of our budget authority as school leaders primarily. And that the board was aware and approved that in each of those funds, if we had to move money around to service things or whatever, or increase the budget, that we would do that. The board would always approve it in a public meeting. And that's really the crux of it, the heart of it. So it's a great question. Thanks, Bob.
Well, I thank you, Melissa, and everyone, because just in the hour, a little over an hour, I've learned more now than I've done in 6 or 7 years of doing this, just because no one's ever told us that we had to separate all these funds out. So it's just,
You're not
It's-
alone. When Dusty and when I got to the SPCSA and then I got hoodwinked Dusty into helping, you're not alone. This isn't just you guys. This was a problem for our schools too. And we're just really working hard to clean it up. So happy
appreciate
to
the time.
help. Yep.
Rochelle, if anything comes up, if you need to shoot us an email or whatever, but I'll defer to Melissa, but I'm sure we're happy to
No,
help
of course,
to
yeah.
speed this up. So
Yeah,
Thanks.
Rochelle and I text or email regularly. So
Okay.
of course, nothing has
Okay.
changed about that. And Rochelle, if it comes down to you need to batch these into 2 or 3 batches, I don't want to be the holdup for getting, I'm not going to put some arbitrary thing in. It's all or nothing.
Okay.
We're not trying to screw these schools or teachers over from getting this money. So just be in touch and we'll, if on Monday you have a few ready to go, ship them over and we'll start
Okay.
taking care of it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. This was a lot of information. I'm very appreciative, so thank you.
Okay,
I
the
will have to
next
go
big
back and
challenge
listen
is going to
again.
be me figuring out how to make this recording accessible to you all since you're not part of this. So give me a couple days to figure it out. I know how we do it for our schools, but I don't really understand if you all are going to have access to our Canvas thing. So it might be a bit of a cluster getting the recording out, but I'll work on it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Uh-huh. All right, bye you guys.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
thanks,
Appreciate it.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Never can remember how to stop recording.